Hey kids, and welcome to Virtual Online Junior Church. I'm Pastor Noah, and I'm excited that you have joined me, and I hope that you are ready to explore the Bible with me today. Do you guys want to do our theme song to get started? Here we go. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Explorers! Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Explorers! Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Explorers! I hope that you are so ready to go. If you have any explorer gear, whether it's a hat or a vest or a magnifying glass or binoculars or anything that you'd like to have with you to remind you that we are actually looking into the Bible today, I would encourage you to get that, come back, and continue watching the video here of Virtual Online Junior Church. I want to get started, and I want to get started with food. You guys like food, right? I like food, all right? One of the things that we're going to talk about today has to do with food, okay? So I just thought, hey, let's get started and we'll start talking about food. So I've got some toy food here that's from my house where my kids play with the toy food, all right? So I'm just going to hold up an object or one of these pieces of food, and I'm going to ask you, do you think it's a healthy food or not healthy food? And we're not going to get super into this because you could define healthy and unhealthy different ways. But healthy or unhealthy? What do you think? Orange. Healthy or unhealthy? I would say an orange is pretty healthy. Okay. Got some lettuce. What would you say? Lettuce is healthy or unhealthy? I would say lettuce is healthy, right? Lettuce is healthy. Ooh. One of my personal favorites, a banana. Healthy or unhealthy? I would say a banana is healthy. Here we go. We got some steak. I think that's what this is. Steak. What do you think? Is steak healthy or unhealthy? I would say steak it can be healthy, right? If we don't eat it all the time, a steak every once in a while wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for us. But again, I don't know how in-depth you want to get on that. You could maybe say it's unhealthy too. And then maybe this will be the last one that I do. Well, no, we'll do another one after this one. But what about pizza? This is a piece of pizza. Is pizza healthy or unhealthy? Pizza is not super healthy. It's got some grease on it. It's got a lot of cheese. It's chock full of carbohydrates. So pizza isn't a super healthy food. Again, every once in a while, no problem. But all the time or too often would not be a healthy thing for us to eat. And then we have something like this. What is this? Do you know? Looks like a potato to me. What do you think? Do you think a potato is healthy or unhealthy? I would say you could certainly, depending on how you cook it or make it, it could be a very unhealthy thing, right? You think about something like French fries, which are really good, and I have French fries from time to time, but not a super healthy food, not a healthy food at all. I don't think anybody would probably put them in that category. So depending on how you make this or eat this, if you eat it like, just a baked potato, then I would say that's a healthy food. All right. So food. So today we're talking about something that has to do with food. So I got our timeline up, and that means that we are doing a different book of the Bible. We're moving from one book to another. So do you guys remember what we have been talking about? What book? We've been talking about the book of Judges. Okay. So today we're going to start talking about the book of Ruth. Ruth is a short book, and it actually takes place, well, let's look at our timeline. Okay, we got all the way back. Creation is all the way over here, the beginning of the world. We move through time, and then we come to right here is where the book of Judges is. That's what we have been talking about, right? And you'll notice right above the book of Judges, you see the name Ruth. So Ruth actually took place during the same time as the book of Judges did. And on our story, or on our timeline here, this is actually a picture of Ruth. Ruth is an important book of the Bible because it helps us to see Jesus. It helps us to look forward and to see Jesus and how God helped us and helped his people in the Old Testament to sort of have a picture of Jesus Christ coming in the future. And so Ruth, the book of Ruth, is right there on our timeline. Now, the book of Ruth, I'll get to how food plays into this, all right? But in the very beginning of the book of Ruth, we come to a family, okay? So we have a family. So I have the family's names written out on the board behind me, okay? So we have Naomi and Elimelech. Naomi and Elimelech are the parents in our story, okay? In the account of Ruth, Naomi and Elimelech, and here's where food comes in, all right? Well, in a second. They have 2 children. They have 2 sons, all right? One of them is named Milan, I guess maybe, or Kilian, okay? So you can ignore the names below them because we're not there yet. But these are their 2 sons. So Naomi, Elimelech, and their 2 sons are Israelites. They're from the nation of God, God's chosen people. All right? But something happens in Israel is they run out of food. There's what we would call a famine. A famine is when food is really hard to find. Okay? And so during the famine, the 4 of them in their family go to another place. They go to a place called Moab. And in Moab, the 2 sons marry 2 women. Okay? And Ruth is one of the women's names, and Orpah is one of the other women's names, okay? So what happens over time is eventually all of the men on the board die, all right? The Bible doesn't tell us how they die or what happened to them other than the fact that they passed away. So now we have 3 women who don't have husbands. Now, back in the time when this was taking place in the Bible, men typically brought money in. They brought in food. They brought in livelihood. And women certainly could do that. But in order to do that, they would have children that would help. As parents got older, the children would help take care of their parents. But you see, Naomi's in the situation where her 2 sons aren't around. And so now she has these 2 daughter-in-laws, is what they would be called, but they're not from Israel. And so Naomi hears that there's food back in Israel, and so she's like, all right, let's go back to Israel. And she tells Ruth and Orpah, don't worry about it. You stay here. You don't have to come back to Israel with me. And Orpah, even though it was a really hard decision, Orpah ultimately ends up staying in Moab and not going back to Israel. But Ruth, on the other hand, this is what Ruth said. Let me actually read it for you here. Flip over. Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. What a super bold thing for this young lady, Ruth, to say, right? She's married. She has no reason to stick around with Naomi other than because it would be something that would be honorable, because she's trying to care for and look after Naomi, because Naomi has nobody at this point. And so Ruth says, I'll stick with you, I'll be with you, I'll stay by your side, even in the middle of a really rough time in Naomi's life. Remember, she's lost her husband and her 2 sons. Okay? And so Ruth says, I'll stick by you. I will be by your side. And isn't that just an awesome picture? And God does that ultimately for us too. So what ends up happening is Naomi and Ruth go back to Israel. They go back together. Okay, this is a picture. I'm going to guess what's in this picture because I'm not 100% sure. But I believe our story picture has, I think this is Naomi. Okay, and I think this is Orpah leaving. And this is Ruth saying, I'll stick by your side. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. All right. So that is our story picture today. Okay. But they go back, and when they get back to Israel, Naomi and Ruth are like, all right, here we are. We're in Israel. How are we going to get food? How are we going to make a living? And so what Naomi does is she tells Ruth to go and to find a field, and where people are harvesting. It was the barley harvest, the Bible says. So when they'd go in and they'd harvest and they'd pick barley to be able to have food. And so Ruth is going to one of the fields, and where she's trying to get what's left over, basically, what those that are harvesting leave behind. On accident or on purpose, whatever, she's trying to get something, right? And that was okay. They were allowed to do that in that day. And what ends up happening is they stumble upon, or Ruth goes to the field of a man named Boaz. And over time, Boaz allows Ruth to have some privileges as far as staying with his servants and being able to have, being able to collect barley. Boaz sort of looks out for her in that sense. All right, and we're going to talk about Boaz next week a little bit more. But Ruth and Naomi are provided for by God and by the kindness of Boaz, because he allows Ruth to come to the field and to get the barley that's left over. All right, so we have a third person that sort of enters into our story, and his name is Boaz. Now, I don't want to leave you on a cliffhanger, but I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger, all right? If you want to hear more about what happens with Boaz and Ruth and Naomi, I would encourage you to check back next week. But this week, we're talking about just this really neat idea that even when times are hard, like it was for Naomi, not only will God stick by us, but God will provide for us. God provided for Naomi in Ruth, right? Ruth stuck by her side. But then they also were provided for by God providing Boaz and allowing Ruth to be able to collect enough food for her and Naomi to live on. So that's a lot to think about. How has God provided for you? What are the things that you can be thankful for in your life that God has given to you? Not things that you've earned necessarily, but things that God has freely given to you. It could be something like your mom or dad work really hard, and so you're able to have food on the table. That's not something that you necessarily have earned, but your parents work really hard, or your mom or your dad or whoever's there at home work really hard for you to be able to have food at the table to be able to eat. And that's an awesome thing. And so God provides for each of us in many different ways. And we just have to stop and to think about those things, right? God provided us ultimately in Jesus Christ. He sent Jesus to die on the cross for our sins. We didn't deserve him to come. We didn't deserve to be saved, right? We were sinners separated because of the wrong things that we do. But Jesus came and he died for us and he rose again. And that's awesome news. So if nothing else that you can think of this week, God has provided for you in sending Jesus Christ, and you can thank him for that. So thanks for exploring the Bible with me a little bit today. Come back next time as we look at Boaz, Ruth, and Naomi, and how the rest of the book of Ruth finishes up. Thanks, and have a great week. Bye.